You all again. Welcome back to KJ on Fishing. I'm thrilled to have you join me today. Today, we're gonna dive deep into the world of my favorite fish, the one that got me hooked on fishing in the first place, the largemouth bass. This fish is not just any fish, it's a symbol of the thrill and excitement that fishing brings. Now, I've been fishing for a long time, and over the years I've picked up a few tricks and techniques that have helped me become a better angler. Catching these green beauties requires patience, skill, and a bit of luck. And let me tell you, there's nothing like the thrill of feeling that tug on your line and reeling in a big old bass. It's a rush that never gets old, no matter how many times you experience it. So whether you're new to fishing or just looking to improve your skills, I'm here to help. Today, I'm gonna share my top 10 tips to help you catch more bass. These tips are tried and true, and they've helped me land some of the biggest bass of my life. We'll cover everything from choosing the right gear to understanding bass behavior. Knowing what gear to use and how bass think and act can make all the difference in your fishing success. By the end of this video, you'll be well on your way to becoming a bass catching machine. You'll have the knowledge and confidence to head out to your favorite fishing spot and reel in those big ones. So, grab your gear and let's get started. Whether you're fishing from a boat, the shore, or a dock, these tips will help you make the most of your time on the water. Let's make this fishing adventure one to remember. Now, before we even think about heading out to the lake, we gotta make sure we got the right gear. And believe me, you don't need the fanciest, most expensive equipment to catch bass. For beginners, I recommend starting with a good old spin cast reel and a medium action rod. That'll give you the versatility to fish different types of lures and baits. Now, when it comes to line, I like to use a 10-pound test monofilament line. It's strong enough to handle most bass, but it's still thin enough to cast easily. Oh, and don't forget about hooks. A good rule of thumb is to match the hook size to the size of your bait or lure. Now, if you want to catch bass consistently, you gotta understand how they think. Bass are predators, and they're always on the lookout for an easy meal. They like to hang out in areas where they can ambush their prey, like weed beds, fallen trees, and docks. They're also drawn to areas with changes in depth, like drop-offs and points. Keep in mind that bass are cold-blooded, so their metabolism slows down in cold water. That means they're less likely to chase after a fast-moving lure in the winter. Pay attention to the weather conditions too. Bass are more active when the water is warmer and there's a little bit of cloud cover. Alright, so you got your gear and you know a little bit about bass behavior. Now it's time to find the fish. When I'm looking for a good bass fishing spot, I always start by looking for cover. Like I mentioned before, bass love to hang out around weeds, trees, and docks. These areas provide shade from the sun and protection from predators, making them ideal spots for bass to ambush their prey. Another thing I look for is changes in depth. Bass will often suspend themselves in deeper water near drop-offs, points, and ledges, waiting for bait fish to swim by. So when you're scouting out a new lake or pond, keep an eye out for these key features, and you'll be well on your way to finding some hungry bass. Now let's dive a bit deeper into what makes these spots so attractive to bass. Weeds and underwater vegetation are like underwater jungles for bass. They provide not only cover but also a rich hunting ground for smaller fish and insects. Fallen trees, or what we call structure, are another favorite hangout. These structures break the current and create a calm area where bass can conserve energy. Docks are also prime real estate for bass. They offer shade and attract bait fish, making them a perfect spot for bass to hide and wait for an easy meal. When it comes to changes in depth, bass use these areas as highways. They travel along drop-offs and ledges, moving between shallow and deep water. Using a fish finder can help you locate these depth changes more easily. Points, where the land juts out into the water, are also hotspots. Bass often patrol these areas, waiting for bait fish to swim by. So next time you're out on the water, remember to look for these features. With a little patience and observation, you'll be reeling in bass in no time. Happy fishing and tight lines. Chapter 4. Best times of day to fish. Now, you can fish for bass any time of day, but certain times are definitely better than others. In general, bass are most active early in the morning and late in the evening when the sun is low in the sky. During these times, the water is cooler and there's less light penetration, making it easier for bass to ambush their prey. Plus, bait fish are more active during these times, which means bass are more likely to be feeding. That being said, you can still catch bass during the middle of the day, especially if you target areas with shade or deeper water. Chapter 5. Using the right bait and lures. Now let's talk about bait and lures. Choosing the right bait and lures can make a significant difference in your fishing success. There are countless options available, but don't let that overwhelm you. It's all about understanding the basics and building from there. For beginners, I recommend starting with a few basic lures that mimic the natural prey of bass. These lures are designed to look and move like the fish's natural food sources. One of my all-time favorite lures is a spinnerbait. Spinnerbaits are incredibly versatile and can be used in various fishing conditions. It's got a flashy blade that spins and attracts attention, and it also has a skirt that pulsates and imitates a baitfish. The combination of flash and vibration makes it irresistible to bass. Another great option is a plastic worm. Plastic worms are a staple in bass fishing and come in many different styles and colors. Texas-rigged plastic worms are weedless, making them ideal for fishing around heavy cover. This rigging method allows the worm to glide through vegetation without getting snagged. Crankbaits are another good choice, especially if you're fishing in deeper water. They are designed to dive to specific depths and mimic the swimming action of baitfish. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, so you can experiment to see what works best in your local waters. Each type of crankbait has its own unique action and depth range, allowing you to target fish at different levels in the water column. As you gain more experience, you'll start to develop a preference for certain types of lures and techniques. Don't be afraid to try new things and see what works best for you. Remember, the key to successful fishing is patience and persistence. With the right bait and lures, you'll be well on your way to catching more fish. So get out there, experiment with different lures, and enjoy the thrill of the catch. Happy fishing! Chapter 6. Casting Techniques. Alright, so you got your gear, you found a promising spot, and you've got the right bait or lure tied on. Now it's time to make a cast. When you're casting, you want to make sure you're using a smooth, controlled motion. Bring the rod tip back to about the 10 o'clock position, then smoothly accelerate the rod tip forward, stopping at the 12 o'clock position. As the rod tip moves forward, release the line with your index finger. Once your lure hits the water, engage the reel and start reeling in your line. Chapter 7. Setting the hook. Now here comes the exciting part, setting the hook. When a bass bites, you'll usually feel a sharp tug or tap on your line. Don't get too excited and jerk the rod back as hard as you can. Instead, you want to use a swift upward motion to drive the hook into the fish's mouth. Once you've set the hook, keep a tight line on the fish and start reeling it in. Chapter 8. Using fish finders. Now if you're serious about catching more bass, a fish finder can be an invaluable tool. Fish finders use sonar technology to create images of the underwater world, allowing you to see the depth, bottom structure, and even fish themselves. This information can help you identify prime fishing spots, determine the depth at which fish are holding, and track the movement of bait fish. There are many different types of fish finders available, from basic models to advanced units with GPS, side imaging, and other features. Chapter 9. Reeling in a bass. Alright, you've hooked into a good one, now it's time to reel it in. Keep the rod tip up, maintain a tight line, and use a steady reel in motion. Bass are notorious for their fighting spirit, so be prepared for them to make sudden runs and dives. If a bass makes a run, don't try to horse it in. Instead, let it run a little bit, keeping tension on the line. Once the fish tires, you can start reeling it in again. As you get the fish closer to the boat, use your rod to guide it towards the net. Once the fish is in the net, carefully lift it out of the water. Chapter 10. Patience and Persistence. Now I've saved the most important tip for last: patience and persistence. Fishing, especially for bass, is all about patience. There will be times when you'll fish for hours without getting a single bite. But trust me, the rewards are well worth the wait. Don't get discouraged if you don't catch anything right away. Keep trying different baits, lures, and techniques until you find what works. And remember, even the most experienced anglers have slow days on the water. So next time you're out on the lake, remember these tips. Be patient and never give up. Outro, tight lines, and happy fishing. Well folks, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips for catching more bass. Remember, practice makes perfect, so get out there on the water and start fishing. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more fishing tips and tricks. And as always, remember to respect the fish, respect the environment, and take care of our waterways. Until next time, tight lines and happy fishing.